Hi, I'm Marie Hopkinson. I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner, and today on the channel I want to talk about foods and why raw foods aren't so great for our body and why you're going to feel better on a mostly cooked foods diet. So let's get into it.
Nice.
So welcome to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. This is the place where you can come to learn about Chinese medicine, to make Chinese medicine easy to understand and to have your questions answered. So if you've got a question about it, pop it in the comments below.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
And I'll do my best to answer it in a video or in the comments. Why are cooked foods so loved and favoured by Chinese medicine practitioners? If you've been to see an acupuncturist or a herbalist, it wouldn't be uncommon for them to sometimes tell you, oh, stop having so much raw, or raw foods are bad for you, or you need to eat more cooked foods. Now, one of the reasons I started making this channel was because I had lots of patients coming to me that had seen practitioners that their English wasn't so great, or even they were Western practitioners, but they just didn't know how to articulate the concepts, or they just didn't take the time to explain why. And so that's what this video is about, is helping you explain why. So to understand this concept properly, we really need to think about our body as a cooking pot on the stove, right? So in terms of our stomach, it's like, in Chinese medicine, they liken the stomach to a 38 degrees soup. So our body temperature in the stomach is slightly higher. And that's because it's more acidic environment, and it's kind of this cauldron of cooking, this cauldron, or imagine the old, witches, the bubble, double, toil and trouble over the cauldron. And that fire below the pot is our digestive system. Okay, so in TCM, they think of this as the Spleen Qi. So if you've ever been told, oh, I've got Spleen Qi deficiency, or raw foods are bad for your spleen, this is what it means. Now, it doesn't mean your physical spleen. So you might have had your spleen taken out. Do you stop being able to digest foods? No. So Chinese medicine is a metaphorical, systematic attribution to these organs. So they're really systems. And what we should really think about this is actually an elemental system. So it's like the element of the earth. The earth is the digestive functions of the spleen energy, or the spleen. Yeah, that's why we don't usually say the spleen by itself. So it's the energy of the spleen, which really isn't the spleen itself. It's really your metabolic processes. It's the enzymes that your body produces to break the foods down. Now that takes up energy. So it's this metaphorical concept of if you take longer to break the food up, that takes up more energy. And cooked foods would break down quicker in your body. And so therefore your absorption of the nutrients from those foods and your ability to utilize, to get utility from those nutrients is much more in cooked foods. It's quicker and it's less taxing on your body. And that's the key element. It doesn't mean that your body can't do it, because you've always got extremes of the spectrum. You have people that do very well on a raw foods diet. And these are usually the people who are making up the raw food diets and saying, oh, go on this raw food diet, it really helped me. Every person is slightly different. We're not all exactly the same, right? We're all human, so we have the same systems. But why can some people live to 100 years and smoke every day? There's been a few people like that. Like, those people are extreme. And they have a robust constitution. They must have very strong lung qi, so they're kind of repelling the toxins. It doesn't make cigarettes less toxic. It's not like that person has had less toxic cigarettes, or we suddenly rethink and think, oh, hang on, maybe cigarettes aren't toxic because someone could smoke every day and live to 100. What it means is that person is they're lucky that they are born with such a strong constitution. Now, another aspect of Chinese medicine, the main fundamental aspect, is this understanding that our body functionally is able to repair itself and is able to repel pathogens and illness. And the reason why we get sick is because it can't do that in some way, right? So either the pathogens or the bombardment of the environment is too much for our body to withstand. So this is when we talk about foods, we think, okay, raw foods bombard our body, but more and more and more raw foods will bombard our body more than a little bit of raw foods. So this is where the key is. When I said at the start of this video, mostly cooked foods. It doesn't mean all cooked. It doesn't mean you have to have every single thing cooked. Because people put in the comments here, and they ask me as well, but Marie said mostly cooked, why are you having some salad? Does that mean I can have some salad? So the general rule is, if you are healthy, if you're healthy, how will you know you're healthy in terms of your digestive system is your bowels. So if your bowels are once a day, properly formed, easy to come out, not sticky, not a lot of wiping, not too loose, that kind of thing, then your spleen qi is probably functioning pretty well with whatever you're eating. Now, it doesn't. If you're eating a predominantly junk foody kind of diet, you might be like the smoking guy and might be very lucky. It doesn't mean that that food's great for you necessarily, right? If you're eating a lot of junk foods, you might be having a lot of raw smoothies, and you might have a very strong, much more stronger constitution than someone who has one smoothie and has like the runs, has diarrhea from that. So if your bowels are pretty much functioning normally and you don't have other symptoms in your digestive system, like you don't have bloating and acidic regurgitation or reflux or other kind of health problems, let's say other symptoms going on, then whatever you're eating, your body must be able to digest that pretty well. And if you don't feel tired, so sometimes with the symptoms of spleen qi deficiency and your earth element being taxed, a lot of people feel very tired after eating. So they eat something, and then because their body's like kind of working so hard to digest what you've put in, it might not be the food itself in isolation, it might be the volume of food that you've had. If you're very busy and you eat really quickly, and then some people, they scoff it all down, they're like, oh good, I'm full, but then like, oh, I feel really too full and I'm really tired and I feel like I want to lie down. So if you are kind of in that place of, maybe you've jumped on this video because you've been told I've got spleen qi deficiency, or I've been told by my TCM practitioner or my acupuncturist I should eat more warm or more cooked food, then I would go onto a predominantly cooked food, so more than mostly, like pretty much all cooked foods for a week, 2 weeks maybe, let's say, and see how you feel. And the test is in the application, right? If you don't feel good on it, well, don't stay on it. Like, that's fine. You know, you might need to adjust it for something else. If it's winter time where you live, then you want to have much more cooked and much more warm. If it's summertime where you live, then you can have much more raw and incorporating more, like you could have more fruit or more salad, kind of raw stuff in the diet with the cooked foods, right? So if you're sick and your spleen qi's really buggered up, like you've got diarrhea, you've got loose bowels, then I would go mostly to the warm cooked foods. So the second part of the basic Chinese medicine diet is mostly cooked, mostly warm, and mostly moist foods. So what that means is not too many dry, crackery things, not too many fried things, stuff that dries the moisture out of the food. And that's really the cooking methods. So another question people ask me is, well, you said mostly cooked foods. What kind of cooking should I do? Look, microwaving isn't the greatest. I threw my microwave in the bin a few years ago, probably about 5 years ago, and I've not looked back since. So I just cook on the stove. I might do grilling, I might do baking sometimes, but mostly I just cook, like heat things up on the stove. I make a lot of slow cooked stuff. I do a lot of curries. I use a microwave from time to time. It's not like I don't ever use one. Sometimes I will heat up my lunch in a microwave, you know, if I can't get something fresh. And it's about a balance of what you can do, the best things that you can do given your own circumstance, right? So certainly cooking foods from scratch is the best, freshly eating it, right? But not everyone can do that. And so if you're suffering in other ways and you think I'm better off just meal prepping my stuff and heating it up and making it once a week, that's actually probably better than getting it from a restaurant or getting home and being so tired and then just eating junk food and crap and not eating properly or things like that. So you've got to make the decisions based on your circumstances. In my practice, I'm a very pragmatic kind of person, and you kind of do the best you can at that time. And then you might find in 3 or 4 months, hey, you know what? I could probably do better now. And so your best might be something a little bit better. You might think, yeah, you know what? I have got time to cook. I might enjoy doing that. I have some patients that say, I hate cooking, Marie. I really dislike it. And, you know, I met some friends the other day that were telling me they really don't like cooking, and they've got this situation where their mum lives next door to them and, you know, in an apartment building, and she makes the food every week for them and she really loves that, and that provides her some sense of community for stuff to contribute to that. They buy all the ingredients and she cooks their food and brings it up every day. I mean, what a perfect arrangement. I think you have to do the best you can in your circumstances, right? So, you know, those are going to be different for every person. And getting caught up in some of these hard and fast rules can be really restrictive to people. And that's not good for your health either. If you're very restricted and you feel really rigid and you feel like, oh, I can't move from this, and, you know, there's no wiggle room, and like, yeah, I just can't attain these, like, you know, really standards that are hard to attain or something like that. So do the best you can with the circumstances that you've got. But the main point of this video is cooked foods are easier to digest because they are naturally pre-digested. And that's what makes them different to raw foods. A lot of foods we just consume raw tend to be colder foods as well, right? So just think about it. Meats have a lot more yang in them. That's why Chinese medicine thinks meats are good to include in your diet, because they come from an animal, they've got blood. Now, you tend to not eat those raw. You'd have to be, you know, having a very small amount of it, or freak of nature, to eat your meat raw. So by that very nature of it being, you know, those foods have more warmness in them, they need to be cooked to be consumed. Whereas fruits and vegetables like potato and pumpkin and carrot, these things that grow under the ground, I mean, carrot people do eat raw, but you don't usually have raw pumpkin and potato and sweet potato and these kinds of foods that are earth element type of foods. They need to be cooked. Foods that grow above the ground, like leafy green vegetables, if you cook them too long, you will lose out all the nutrients. So those kinds of things, like let's say you've got lettuce or spinach or something that's like spring onions or something like that, you don't really need to cook those foods. But by having a bowl with some salad or that sort of stuff in there, or sprinkling that on top, the heat of the other food that you've heated up kind of warms that by itself. And if you're eating those things together, then that helps to lessen the harsher effects of the cold foods. The worst kind of diet in Chinese medicine would be someone who has a lot of smoothies as their predominant diet. So a person who wakes up in the morning and has just has a cold smoothie with a lot of nutrients shoved into that thing. There's a few reasons for that. One is that concentrated nutrition can sometimes be overwhelming for your body. It doesn't need all of that. The other thing is it's just very cold, and first thing in the morning you want to treat your stomach well. You want to sort of wake it up nicely rather than kind of going, oh, okay, the day has started, it's very cold in here. And watch your digestion symptoms. So if you get bloated or you get full, you know, in this area underneath your ribs, this is my ribs right here, my chest. My ribs are all over here. But in between my breasts, right underneath that where your ribs finish, like in this area here, that's your stomach area. If you get very full there, then that's usually to do with like your actual stomach itself. Whereas if it's lower down around your umbilicus or below there, then that's usually to do with more the fire of the cooking pot, not the cooking pot itself, right? The cooking pot itself is the stomach. The fire of it is your spleen or your earth element, the yin of the earth. So it's the ability to do the digestion. It's like saying, well, your oven's not working properly because it can only generate a small amount of heat. So that's the reason why we say if you've got issues already, like your spleen or your digestive energy is weak, you've got spleen Qi deficiency or spleen yang deficiency or something like that, well, by eating mostly cooked, you're putting less pressure on your existing system. And it doesn't mean that you have to eat like that forever, but just give it a try for a couple of weeks and see how you feel, especially if you've gone from a very predominantly raw diet or you've had a lot of smoothies. And then every so often you can have those things. Now, I know Chinese medicine practitioners that have smoothies and they don't have them that often. They would probably have them only in certain seasons. And it's more about the balance of what else you have. Like, so people that have 3 smoothies a day and everything's liquid and they're...
But nothing as strange as that.
Like, it's not usually that good for you long term. But if you're having like cooked meats or cooked foods in the lunchtime or the dinner time, you don't necessarily even have to have 3 meals a day. You might only have a 2 meal a day schedule. Something you can think about when you're having the juices or the smoothies is if you could comfortably eat that volume of food by itself, like you could put that broccoli in your mouth and chew it up and eat it, then you could put it in your smoothie. So carrots are kind of like that. You could probably put a carrot in your mouth and eat a carrot. But there's some things people put in smoothies like kale, raw kale. It's actually quite toxic to you to have it like that. some things need that cooking process to awaken the digestive process for your body and lessen the harsher effects or take off some of the toxins of the food. So that is my best advice for you. If you're really addicted to the smoothies and you love it so much, you could also try putting some warming things in there, like some ginger, turmeric. Particularly ginger is better than turmeric in terms of it's more warming. And that can help to, and ginger is very good for your digestive system, so it kind of supports your earth element a little bit. So that's something you could try doing, or you could try watering it down. So like I said, if that volume of food you couldn't eat, you made one big smoothie, you cut it in half and you have half today and half tomorrow, and you just add some water to it. Yep. So I hope this video has been useful and helpful to you. If you haven't checked out my video below, it's in the top of the playlist at the bottom saying start here. It's called Why Eat Mostly Cooked Foods, and that kind of explains this process a little bit more. It's a bit of an older video, so that's why I thought I'd do this new one to kind of explain this, but in a different way. And that video's got a bit more of a tutorial, and it kind of explains that warm, cooked and moist, and the opposite of that, the cold, dry and raw, and what your body likes and why it loves cooked foods so much. So I look forward to hearing from you in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of the video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate people subscribing and letting me know that this is helpful and useful to you, and then I'll make more stuff. So have a great week, and I'll see you again on the next video.